Alrighty, gang. It is 7:05. So I think we will start our program here. My name is Sonia Wadman, and I'm the executive director of the Waltham Land Trust. I am really pleased to have Shilo McDonald here today to give our presentation, and I'm joined by Diana Young, who is on the Waltham Land Trust Board of Directors. Diana and I are going to be managing the Zoom here and handling questions later. But first, just a couple of words about the Waltham Land Trust. Our mission is to promote, protect, restore, and acquire open space. We thought very long and hard about the order of those verbs. We love our open spaces. We love our parks and trails. So we do everything we can to promote them and get people outside and enjoying them. We protect them. We stand up and advocate to save land and preserve our natural resources when needed. We restore our landscapes, and that is done largely by the work of our volunteer trail stewards. But we also have group activities such as all of our Earth Day events. We had two massive cleanups on Saturday, the 20th, one along the Charles and the other in the afternoon at Hardy Pond. We had over 100 people along the Charles, despite the rain in the morning, and we had over 60 at Hardy Pond in the afternoon. And then lastly, acquiring open space. We're just a small little nonprofit with not tons of money, so we don't acquire as much open space as you might think of other land trusts doing. We encourage the city of Waltham to buy open space, and then we help maintain it. However, we have been acquiring open space. Last year, we bought 3 small parcels on Hardy Pond to add to the other one that we already have on Hardy Pond. So we have 4 small parcels on Hardy Pond, and we're very excited about that. We're very similar to a friends group, a friends of our parks or rivers. We have events throughout the year. Each month, we usually have 2 or 3 events. We always have a walk where we talk about history or nature, and or we have a Zoom presentation like we are tonight. And we also always have a fundraiser of some type. So even in the dead of winter, we do these things. And we are a membership organization, which means the majority of our funding comes from dues that people pay annually. And we think they're quite affordable. It's only $25 for an individual or $50 for a household. And of course, we'd be delighted if anybody would like to join us at a higher level than that. Your dues help us pay for our amazing Zoom presenters like Shilo. And we also provide tools and training for our volunteer trail stewards. The money helps us with our land conservation campaigns. We do a lot of printing of our trail guides and other materials. And then, of course, we need some money to pay for our staff, our office space, and other things. Plus, our members help us bolster our advocacy efforts, and it really gives us a little more clout when we're trying to convince the city or the state to do something. So it's great to have a lot of members standing behind us, and we know that you agree with what we're advocating for. So members also get our newsletter, which we call the Journal, and that comes out twice a year. So only our members get this. A lot of you might get my e-blasts, like an e-newsletter. This is very different. This goes into detail and behind the scenes on our open spaces, our advocacy campaigns. We often spend a lot of time talking about the history of some of our open spaces. And right now, I'm actually in the process of putting together our spring journal. So you still have time to become a member if you're not one already. We plan to mail those out next week. And then we have another journal in the fall. Our members also get discounts on our ticketed events. Most of our events are free, but every once in a while we have a special fundraiser where we charge. And our members always get a $5 discount or sometimes more. And one of these events is our major fundraiser, the Green Space Blues Jam, which is happening this year on Sunday, June 9th in the afternoon. This is really exciting. We're having Sonia Ray Taylor is our musical guest. She was a nominee for Boston's Best Blues Artist last year. She's a young woman. She's awesome. We actually had her in our 2021 Blues Jam, which was held in place. It was a virtual event because of COVID. And a lot of people told me that they really enjoyed seeing her and they would like to see her in person. So we're really excited to have Sonia Ray and her band on June 9th at the Blues Jam. So if you're a member, you get a discounted rate. So you can become a member, or if you just want to make a donation, you can do so at walthamlandtrust.org. We have lots of upcoming events. Our next one is going to be this Tuesday when we're having a fundraiser with Jake and Joe's Sports Grill. They're located over next to the Market Basket. So all you need to do to participate in that is either go to the restaurant or order online a takeout, a takeout dinner or whatnot. Good for dinner and lunch. But we ask that you please follow the instructions that you can find on our website when you're ordering. Basically, you need to let the server know that you're part of the fundraiser, and you want to make sure that fundraiser is on your bill. And when you're placing your order online, you somehow denote that you're part of the fundraiser, and it will get 20% of your sale. Then on Saturday, May 11th, we'll be participating in Steampunk, the Watch City Steampunk Festival, which is this really fun annual event that happens on Waltham Common on the Saturday Mother's Day weekend every year. And what we'll be doing is having a walk along the Charles River, where I will be talking about the nature and history of the area. Lots of history. I'm sure a lot of you know that the American Industrial Revolution started in Waltham. So we'll be talking about that on our walk on May 11th. On Tuesday, May 14th, we'll be having another Zoom like this. This Zoom will be with Michelle Grisenda, who is going to tell us how we can be birders. Basically, it'll be a birding 101. Michelle will teach us some bird watching tips and tricks, and it's going to be a fabulous, fabulous Zoom. Later in the month, Michelle will lead an evening bird walk. And then in June, she'll be leading a morning bird walk. And those will both, you'll have to register for those two bird walks because space will be limited. And then on May 18th, we're having our fundraiser with Wagon Wheel Farm Stand, which is in Lexington. And it's a similar thing to the Jake and Joe's. All you need to do is tell them that you're part of the fundraiser when you go and buy your seedlings. They have delicious sandwiches. You can buy groceries there and fish and flowers. And the Land Trust will get 20% of your sale. So all you need to do is tell them you're part of the fundraiser and we'll get a small part of your sale. So all of this information will be on our website under events very soon. The Jake and Joe's fundraiser is already up there, but the May events will be posted next week. All right. So now on to our show. As you've probably figured out by now, this is a webinar, so only the panelists are unmuted and visible. It's going to stay that way for the whole duration of the event, which is being recorded, and we will put this recording on our website, on our YouTube channel. That'll probably happen sometime next week. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A, which you can locate either down at the bottom or up at the top of your screen. And you'll just type in your question and we'll answer them. Diana and I will ask Shilo to answer them at the end of the program. And now a few words about Shilo. He is a local birder, an expert birder. He is involved with a variety of birding clubs, including Brookline Birding Club and a club in Essex. He's a member of Mass Audubon. and he thinks nature is great. He is a photographer, and you'll be able to admire his works in just a minute. It's amazing. I'm blown away at his photos. And then obviously Shilo is a huge advocate of native plants. And that is what he's going to tell us all about right now. So Shilo, let's have you pull up your presentation and we'll go from there.
Thanks. Thank you, and hi, everyone. Thanks to the Waltham Land Trust. Waltham Land Trust's mission statement is in line, exactly in alignment with my own presentation tonight and what I've been trying to do in my backyard. So kudos to you and you all, and I'm excited to hear about buying more plots of land and trying to maintain them as open spaces. That's awesome. A few years ago, you all might remember COVID lockdown. I had to work from home. It was a requirement that if you could work from home, you had to work from home. And I sat in my sunroom and I looked out into the backyard and nothing was happening. And when I would go birding, it didn't take long to figure out that certain birds liked certain trees, certain birds liked certain bushes, certain birds liked certain plants. And my grass was none of those. So I started asking around the birding community, hey, what would you install? What would you buy? What could I plant to attract more birds to my yard? And this was a little selfish because I really wanted to be able to look out and see something other than just grass growing. And I started with winterberry bushes, mostly because that was one of the #1 answers that I got from all of these experienced bird watchers. Winterberry bushes are a fantastic winter food source for so much of our wildlife, but especially cedar waxwings, northern mockingbirds, Baltimore orioles. I had a little bit of space between a chain link fence and the street, and I bought four plants, bushes, and you can tell they're very small, maybe a foot, 2 feet tall max, I guess. For winterberry bushes, they're a holly, so you need to have male and you need to have female. Otherwise, you won't get any berries. And the space between the chain link fence and the street was very narrow, but I didn't care. I said, I'm going to put these here and let's see what happens. And something did happen. They grew surprisingly really well. So you can see the bottom picture is 2024, and for comparison, 2 years later, the exact same shot. This time I have these bars showing the height, and you can see how much higher they are compared to before. It didn't take really too long. I mean, it's 2 years, but they're growing at the pace that they would, and they would even grow more had there been more sunlight in this area. But you can see from the trees in the background, some of this is shaded. Also want to point out I'm on a hill, and while this is my what I call my backyard, it is at a pretty steep slant. And now we skip to last year. I got a new fence, and you can see the winterberry bushes have really. I mean, they have to be one of my favorites. I can't believe how well they're doing. If you don't know, the male doesn't grow very as tall as the females, but the females are huge. And the one on the right of this picture, you can see the berries that are in the bush. And I'm going to show you those up close here. This is what I'm talking about. This is a winter food source for so many birds. And, you know, before that even happens, it's a food source for so many pollinators. So the flowers themselves attract bees and butterflies and flies. And you can see, even though it was right next to the street, which gets salted like crazy, it still did very well, and it's still doing very well. Now, to give you a comparison of what my yard was, this is what it was. And when I purchased the house 2005, I kept the yard and the lawn and everything exactly the way that it was. I just felt that I needed to keep it. I don't know. I thought I needed to do what we're kind of taught to do, and that's to mow your yard and to mow the grass, keep it a certain height, and you've got the standard. I've got the standard stuff: azaleas, hostas. There's a rose bush. There's daffodils, hydrangeas. These are the typical things you'd find in a typical yard, and there's nothing really native. I'm going to be blunt about it. Just about everything, even the grass, isn't native. The only thing in here that's native are these oak trees. And they were here probably when that house was built. This house has been about 100 years old now. So I'm on a rock ledge, and you can see there's a retaining wall, and I'm looking up the hill, and that's the length, that's the backyard. And on the right, I'm looking down to the shed, which is downhill. And those are some of the plants that I decided I would start this process with. Here's another view of the backyard before. I went up onto the roof and I took a shot over where the orange car is. That's where the winterberry bushes are. And, it's about maybe half a tennis court. Maybe. It's not a big yard, despite how it might look from the roof. It's not really that big yard, but it is uphill, and that can be quite a challenge. Down below, you can see the rock ledge is coming through, so there's not a lot of soil here. I planned it out. Said, all right, in the chain link fence, there's a gate over there, and I thought, okay, if I walk through the gate, it would be nice to have a little path, and then I need to be able to get to the shed. And I'll have to come around the side by the retaining wall and then down to the front. And this path will be a footpath through what's going to become a native plant landscape. And here's where this is when I really got into it. So now you can see what I mean. The before and then first year. So I had laid the plants out where I wanted to put them, and I just dug holes. I just dug a hole in the grass and planted the bush and said, all right, here's where you're going to be. I mean, I can't say it was always the best. I made some mistakes along the way, but the vision was there and the passion's there, and I was just going to make it happen. A friend of mine who's another birder, he had these paving sort of stones. These are natural slate and stones, and I really fell in love with them. And he gave me those because he knew I wanted to make this path a reality. And I started planting. Most of these ones here are what are called high bush blueberry. High bush blueberry is a very resilient, very drought resistant native plant. And of course it makes blueberries, which everybody likes, but the wildlife love it too. And you can see these turkeys here. Turkeys enjoy the backyard. These are wild turkeys. These are not my turkeys. This is the wildlife in our neighborhood. And I live in Lynn, and I live in a very urban area. Route 107 is just on the other side. If you know the area at all, Western Ave and Highland Ave, right on the Salem line. And then you got Eastern Ave, very high traffic, a lot of asphalt, a lot of brick, and a lot of homes. And here I am kind of making this sort of a micro forest. Comparison shots. So we've got April 27th in the bottom, that's 2021. This is when I mean, think about that. That's just a few years ago. I'm spacing the planters out, the pots, and I'm saying, okay, where am I going to put these guys? Where am I going to put these guys? And then June 27th, same year, now they're in the ground. And the view completely changes. Suddenly I've got life out there. Although the turkey, these are two different turkeys, in case you're wondering. The birders would know down below is a female and up above is a male. But they were thrilled that I was giving blueberries. They like blueberries too. And here we go a year later. And you can see how much more lush now and how much more green up above is. And again, turkeys are still hanging out. They're not there every day, despite the photos, but they do come by, and that's usually when I get my camera out. And this is a picture of the yard before and after, but not a year apart, same month. And as I said, I got a new fence. So there's a new fence now, but you can see the height difference in these primarily shrubs. And that's what I started with. I started with shrubs because one, I felt that they would survive. They're more likely to me to survive. My thought process was, if I can get the biggest, I'm probably not going to kill it. Hopefully it'll survive the transplant and being put into completely different soil, which can be really shocking to a lot of plants. I also wanted to make that path where it was almost like a hedgerow, where I could go in and be surrounded by this lush vegetation. So that's what I started with, and those things are growing. And now you can see 1 year apart, going into June 2023, and how much more height the blueberry bushes have. And that's, again, most of those are blueberry. There's some bayberry in there, and there's some dogwood trees in there, and some chokeberry trees. And I'm going to show you some of those in a sec. But take a look at this. I got to move a little window here. So this is 2022, and this is the same day, 1 year later. July 7th, 2022, I go up on the roof, I take a picture. July 7th, 2023. Holy cow. One of the things I've discovered, when you buy a plant, and most of my plants are sourced locally, Native Plant Trust in Framingham, Garden in the Woods, they have incredible selection. And they're a nonprofit. If you have a membership, you get a discount. A lot of the plants came from them. I also buy from the Swampscott Conservancy locally, and the Salem Native Nursery locally in Salem. They all have native plants. And if you buy a plant like a shrub, especially, and you want it to grow fast, well, don't follow the instructions. The instructions are going to tell you, plant this 3 feet apart or 6 feet apart, away from each other. But no, if I had a shrub sitting out there that was 6 feet away from the others, he may not grow even a foot a year, because he doesn't have to. He's getting all the sunlight. He's getting as much water as he wants. He has all the resources. He doesn't have to compete with anyone. Whereas what I did is I shoved them all together and pretty close. And so what they ended up doing was they grew faster, taller, and wider to compete with each other. But that's exactly what I wanted, because in the natural world, you don't have someone out there saying you got to be 6 feet apart. They will grow together and in between each other. And so if you go to the Nahant Thicket, Mass Audubon's Nahant Thicket, as the name implies, a lot of these same plants are there, and they made a thicket. Naturally, nobody had to plant them to make that thicket. I planted them to make this thicket, but it's more than a thicket, as you'll see. Oh, I want to point out too, I have clotheslines. You can see them in before, you can see them in after. Those are the clotheslines. I still dry my clothes on clotheslines because I like to save on electricity, and the dryer is your #1 electricity user in your house. So I still use that. I mean, you can't do it all the time or every, our weather is a little crazy, but there's nothing like, sheets out on the line, in the springtime or the summer. It's fantastic. So I still use the lines. I keep them, and that's why they're there. A backyard reimagined. This is what I was imagining, and you can see it starting to happen. So we're looking at 2022, and this is kind of year 2. That path is starting to take shape. The shrubs that are, around, they still have stakes. I'm a little nervous about them, and then trying to coddle them a little bit. The grass is still there. People are like, well, what do you do with the grass? Well, I left it. And in fact, the grass did a couple of good things. One, it acted like a container. And so in some cases, it held things there. Sometimes people will tell you, oh, don't buy running groundsel or wild strawberry, right? Because these things are going to go everywhere. They're going to take over your yard. Well, no, they won't. Not if you have grass. The grass is about maybe 4 to 6 inches deep. And so it's a thick carpet, and it really holds or contains a lot of these plants from going sideways. That was the first thing. The second thing that they did is, as I started to build up, and that shows a little more in the second picture on the right here, it kind of became contained garden beds. Like, I'm starting to add in these rocks, and you can see the rocks showing up a little bit on the right. Those rocks weren't there before it was grass. I started adding in rocks. I started adding in rocks over here. And what happens is it becomes, like a raised garden bed. Only instead of those wooden blocks, I'm using these rocks. And then inside of that, I'm just covering with soil. And now the grass turns into fertilizer. And that, I couldn't believe how well that worked. It doesn't happen right away. But it did happen. So the grass ended up breaking down. And anytime I dug in more recently to dig to put a plant down there, if there was any grass that was still underneath, the worms were just going, so many earthworms, I couldn't believe it. I was so excited because I didn't have that before. And now I have actual earthworms eating the grass under the ground and turning it into, it's compost, basically. And it's feeding these trees and these shrubs. So now you can see it. This is really what I was hoping when I drew that red line, is that I would have my own sort of path through my yard that would be surrounded by native plants. And here's another view, this time looking down to the shed, and you can see this is the exact same day, 1 year apart. So down below, still a whole lot of grass being seen. Up above, now everything's getting taller, wider, and I'm starting to fill things in. You can even see the rocks are getting better. It took me a while to learn how to do the rocks. I can't tell you, the hardest was digging holes and planting. I was planting rocks to get them to look the way I thought it should look, and to try to make it look a little more natural with the landscape. In the background, by the way, I have a composter. It's that giant green thing to the right of the shed. I actually throw all my leaves and lawn clippings and stuff like that in there. Anywho, another view, the before. This is looking down at the house. So this is really the first time you see the house. That sunroom is what I would sit in, and I would look out and go, what's going on out there? And not see anything going on out there. Well, this is going to be the same view now. Now I see a whole lot going on out there. In fact, one of my favorite things is to go out and just explore the yard. The life that's back there now. I mean, it's inspirational, and I'm hoping you're going to feel it too. And I promise you're going to see it. Let me go backwards. This really is a desert. You know, when it comes to being able to sustain a local ecosystem, grass that's non-native isn't really doing anything. You know, occasionally you might see a robin hop along and grab an earthworm, but if you're using Grub-X, he might be eating a poisoned earthworm. And I was so angry that I got tricked. I feel like I got tricked because I bought the house and I wanted to do what was right. I was like so proud. I'm a homeowner. Now I got to take care of the yard and this responsibility. And what it was is see, I'm getting riled up about it now. You got fertilizer, you've got grass seed, you got lawn patch, you've got a lawn mower. I had gas for the lawnmower. I had to clean the carburetor. I had to buy this stuff to put in the gas to make sure that it would work okay if it overwintered in the shed. You know, you spend so much time and so much money on stuff for what? And for me, it was for this green grass that I didn't use. I looked at. I wasn't really doing anything with it, so it was kind of a waste. It was like a plastic carpet. It might as well have been AstroTurf because it wasn't doing anything for the area. And now it is. But I want to say too, invasive plants. This is really pretty important. So invasive plants are maybe showing up more now than before. They weren't really around so much in the 80s, believe it or not. We didn't have international trade like we do now, and how easy it is to buy something from overseas or buy something from Asia or even Europe. And we end up with plants that aren't supposed to be here. We end up with a lot of things that aren't supposed to be here, bugs, animals. But plants, especially now, are showing up. And we've had things show up that only started appearing in 1995. So from 1995, first documented case, and now all over the place, like garlic mustard. I am so upset about garlic mustard. You don't even have to get me started on that one. But I will tell you, it adds toxin to the soil. One of its defenses is to poison the soil so that no other plants can grow, only itself, which it can grow in that. And I think common buckthorn, which is another invasive plant that are near, they find them together a lot. So there is a website address here. We can share this later too. This is the Massachusetts government's banned list. Every state gets to have a banned list. There's a federal list and there's a state list. This is the prohibited plant list for the state. No plants on that list are allowed to be purchased, cared for, sold, traded, or even transported through here, and garlic mustard is one of them. And yet, unfortunately, they're here. In fact, the only reason they're on that list is because they found their way here, and now we got to get rid of them. So I had to work on that. I didn't do that at first, though. At first, I was caring for them because I'm silly. I didn't know. This tree here is a Norway maple. So Norway maples, that's one that has been around a long time. I think it was around the 1900s, or early 1900s, we started to plant them along roadsides because we figured out that the Norway maple, well, it outcompeted the locals and bugs didn't eat it. Well, bugs didn't eat it because it wasn't from around here. It's not their maple tree. It's a European maple tree. And so, yeah, it'll grow and it'll be lush. And you know what? It grows faster than our trees. and it makes this huge umbrella and shades everything. But also underneath the ground, it creates a mat, kind of like that grass I talked about, of roots that will really suffocate anything that's growing or wants to try to grow down there. It's really difficult for other plants to take hold underneath a Norway maple. So I cut it down, but I didn't cut the whole thing down. I wanted to show this photo because I left the trunk in place, and that's because I want it to be bird habitat, and I'm hoping maybe some woodpeckers will, take up shelter there. I did the same thing here, and I cut it, I killed it. You can see down below, I put a big slice in it. Basically, if you don't know, a tree grows only really on the outside of the tree. The inside of the tree is pretty much dead. It's growing from the outside out. So the bark and then underneath that, and that's how it draws up all of its water and nutrients and everything, is through that outside. So if you want to get rid of a tree, you could just cut a ring around it, which will stop the nutrients from being able to grow further up. I did part of that here, and it was enough. It's been a couple of years, he's not grown back. I got a little carried away with this one. I was really starting to get upset with these things still growing and showing up. And these are things you might think, well, I didn't plant it, it grew by itself. Well, yeah, it grew by itself, which is, it should be a sign that you didn't put it there. Maybe it's an invasive. Invasives will grow faster, and they will outcompete the local plants because they don't have anything around here that naturally eats them. We don't have bugs that are going to eat them. We don't have animals that are going to eat them. We don't even have beetles that'll eat the wood. It would be very difficult. They're not, they didn't evolve with these plants. So that's one of the reasons why they're doing so well. It would take a while for our habitat to be able to catch up. So I cut them down and got rid of them. This was the biggest and most upsetting one, I guess I should say. To the left is an oak tree that's 100 years old. This is the front of the house. To the right is a Norway maple. That Norway maple did what I was mentioning I was doing in the backyard. It grew next to the oak tree and then decided it wanted the sunlight. So it grew above the oak tree. And it did that in 20 years. That's, it's scary that nothing could hold it back. That we didn't have anything that could contain this except us. So I got that cut down too. According to Doug Tallamy, I don't know if you've heard of Doug Tallamy, he writes some great stuff. He wrote a book called The Nature of Oaks. He wrote another book, Bringing Nature Home. He's saying a very similar message, if not the exact same message, maybe better than I'm saying it. He's saying that from his studies, 70% native supports the local ecosystem. 70% native, which means anything less than 70% is not supporting the local ecosystem, and in fact is harming the local ecosystem. And that's a problem. I see that as a problem, and that's why I made some of the changes in the backyard also. And these are some of the changes. My impression is there's too much light in here, so I'm gonna move that light back. Maybe that'll help. Okay. Buttonbush. If you don't know Buttonbush, I think the first time I ever saw it was at the Ipswich River Wildlife Sanctuary in Ipswich, and it is beautiful. It's such a striking plant when you see it, and I have two of them in my backyard. This photo, every photo I show you is a photo from the backyard. Every plant is a plant in the backyard. This is the Buttonbush in bloom in my backyard. And it is, you can just see it. Come on now. That's a real plant. Holy cow. It looks, I didn't even know they existed until a few years ago. And now I'm in love with them. Here's another picture of it in bloom, and you can see just how cool it looks even before it opens up. The bud over there is just, it looks alien almost, but the butterflies love it. The bees love it. Pollinators love it. Seaside goldenrod, I planted it. It's alive. It's in the yard. I don't know if it has to be seaside. It's usually where it's found. I'm only a couple of miles from the ocean, so maybe that helps. But it's a beautiful and another striking plant. And up close, you can really see the individual flowers. This here is a ground cover. So blue violet is a ground cover. Violets are ground covers. And this one actually stayed green for most of our winter. We had a mild winter. Surprisingly, this guy, I check on him every now and again, and it still had green leaves. I don't think it's supposed to. It's okay if it goes dormant or even dies back, but I checked on it today and I could see that new leaves are coming out. This flower is tiny. A lot of my pictures, I try to get up close so I can see the details, and they're really small. But this one, this one is not small. This is the great blue lobelia. Hummingbirds love it. Butterflies love it. This one's purple. I think there are a few colors. This can grow. Mine have been 3 or 4 feet, and it may even be able to go taller. It has a stalk like this, and it's just striking when you see it. Totally, this is a native plant. Why don't we all have these in our yards? I don't know. And instead, we've got tulips that are not from New England. Here it is, another picture of it. You can see, wow, just awesome. New England aster. These guys are Red Sox fans. I'm a Red Sox fan. Why don't I have it in my yard? Well, I do now, and it's beautiful. This is a flower and a plant that you would find ordinarily maybe in a ditch. And I think we just grew up thinking they were weeds. But, you know, they're growing there because they were native to the area and they would get cut out of our yards. Well, now I'm planting them and putting them back. It's a gorgeous flower and it's a beautiful plant, and the pollinators go nuts over it. This is blue mist flower. This isn't fully bloomed. You can see the little lines of the flower coming out. It will pop, just total all blue string soon. And you can see some more of it here. New York ironweed is very similar to the New England aster. This plant is amazing. It can go, I think, 6 feet tall if allowed. And it's also beautiful. Here it is starting to pop. Queen of the Prairie, another beautiful one, can grow pretty tall, and the pollinators love it. Scarlet bee balm, the day after I put this in my yard, I had hummingbirds, more than one. Now, when I had only grass, there was no hummingbirds. I've been here 18, almost 19 years, and I can't believe all I had to do was plant scarlet bee balm, and then I would have hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are the most, I don't know if you get a chance to see them, but they are the coolest birds, probably the coolest. And I can't tell you how amazing it felt to know that here I was putting something in my own yard, specifically to get hummingbirds, and then the hummingbirds came. Swamp milkweed. So, you know, milkweed has sometimes a bad name. First of all, we put weed in the name, and that's probably, well, shame on us, because it's not really a weed. It's a beautiful flower and has a beautiful fragrance, and is the #1 nest site of the monarch butterfly. And just a few years ago, the monarch butterfly was put on the International Endangered Species list, and here we are pulling out the milkweed, so it doesn't even live in the neighborhood anywhere, except I've got it in my yard. And the pollinators, where do you see them? They came. Zigzag goldenrod, this is another native. I probably planted 4 or 5 different goldenrods. That's an eastern bumblebee. Black chokeberry, I mentioned this one earlier for the birds. You can see the striking color in the fall. It turns a really nice burnt sort of red. Fragrant sumac in the fall. Look at this. You want fall foliage, fall color? Forget about Norway maple. Get fragrant sumac. This is our native, and you'll help the ecosystem. Same with arrowwood viburnum, another one of my favorites. You can see the color coming in here. White wood aster is a native. We would have thought of it as a weed. I know I mowed it in my yard. This is a plant I didn't even plant. Now that I know what it is, I leave it be, and pollinators are excited. Allegheny serviceberry is in bloom right now. Just today, I was looking at the flowers. This is fantastic, brings in the cedar waxwings. Running groundsel, we talked about. This is another ground cover. I'm fond of it, and it doesn't seem to take over my yard, so I'm okay with it. Sheep laurel, this is new. I put this in last year. I think the flowers are really cool. When you look at them up close, you can see all the detail. Butterflies love them, pollinators love them. It is poisonous to mammals, so cats, dogs, things like that should stay away from that one, but the flowers are beautiful. Wild bergamot is another kind of like a bee balm, and the hummingbirds will go nuts. Basically, if you want to attract hummingbirds, look for the flowers that have these tubes, because the hummingbird is going to go right into those tubes to grab the nectar. Clustered mountain mint. I couldn't believe how many bugs were excited about the mountain mint. I didn't realize they could even pay attention. These little tiny purple flowers pop, and it's beautiful. White snake root, another one pollinators love, and large cranberry. So I planted a couple cranberry bushes, and I know people think of cranberry, we think of the Cape, we think of bogs. I don't have bogs. I have a yard, but they live, they survive the winter. They're still green. They even will stay green in the wintertime. They're beautiful. I don't know what to tell you. I just say that it worked. I don't know if it'll keep working, but I'm keeping an eye on them. I love them. Partridge pea, another favorite with the pollinators. Canada burnet. Folks, every one of these is now in my yard. Husker red penstemon. And every one of these is local. This is all native. Oh, turtlehead. White turtlehead is a beautiful, beautiful flower, and the bugs love it. And you can kind of tell from the name and how it looks, you can see how they would call it white turtlehead. Inkberry is my newest favorite. I know I have a lot of favorites. This is my newest favorite. I planted 6 of them just last year, and they all survived the winter, and I can't wait for the flowers to come out. It's another holly. If you want to replace a boxwood or a wormwood, some of these hedge kind of trees that you get that you want to shape, you can do the same thing here, only this is a local and a native, and it'll be an evergreen. So the leaves are going to stay green all winter long. You're going to get flowers, you're going to get berries, and the birds are going to eat the berries, hopefully in the wintertime when they need food. Flowering raspberry. Flowering raspberry is not the wild raspberry that we usually pull up and get rid of because we're worried it's going to take over. Flowering raspberry is a different kind, and you can see with this great flower, it's beautiful. I've got a couple of those. They're doing great. They haven't taken over. High bush blueberry I talked about. I actually have 19 of those, and I love them. I love the fragrance too. You can kind of smell blueberries when you go back there and the flowers open up. Important, if you're going to make any of these changes, you got to let your neighbors know. They want to know what's going on, especially with all of the, it's not grass anymore. And so I put out some signs. I think that's the smart thing to do. I got this metal sign here, butterfly garden. I've got a garden sign on the left, native plant garden on the right. Native plants use less water. And I even got in the front of the house. This is where I've been putting the, what I'm doing is a pollinator garden over there. This sign came from the DCR, Massachusetts DCR. They gave them out for free, and they gave out seed packets of wildflowers to try to help the pollinators. Bugs are disappearing at an alarming rate, and no coincidence, birds are disappearing too. So they're trying to help combat that, and they were promoting this. And I went and I got the sign, and I got some seeds, and I put them in the front yard. And I got this sign too. This is my pollinator garden. That's official. This is in the back. This is the front. And these are some of the seeds that the DCR gave me. Officially, purple coneflower or echinacea, that's not native originally to Massachusetts or eastern Massachusetts. It's what's called a near native, and it's working fine. So you don't have to. Besides, as long as it's 70% native, you're helping the ecosystem. That means 30% could be anything you want. So you could keep your favorite hydrangeas and your favorite tulips and your favorite rosebush and maybe even your favorite purple coneflower, but add in some natives as well around it. And that's what all the others are adjacent. Native plants benefit butterflies. So I've got these signs all around to let everyone know what's going on in the yard and to keep my neighbors appraised of what's been happening. I also set up these little cheat sheets to help me because I was planting so many new things. I didn't know what it was and what kind of soil it liked or what kind of water it liked. So here's the winterberry and Ilex verticillata. This is, or salata. I put the Latin names too, because when you go buy stuff, sometimes common names aren't always the common name, depending on who you talk to. But the Latin name is always the same. So I try to use the Latin names. Now, this, I didn't plant any of this. And I want to point that out. Those are natives that I had mowed. In the front is the wood aster, and in the back is what's called blue stem goldenrod. And these were natural to the landscape, and I would just mow right over them because I thought they were weeds. It turns out they're not. And look at how beautiful it is. This is a foggy day, but you can see how much more beauty is there instead of just a cleaner view of the shed. Now, to feed the birds, though, you got to feed the bugs. And that's where these come in. I'm going to zip through these, but you're going to be astounded by the diversity. None of these were here when it was just a grass lawn, right? There was no reason for them to be there. Now, all of a sudden, things showing up I never saw, I never heard of. Bicolored striped sweat bee. It's beautiful and it's tiny. That is on a New England aster, which is, about this big is the flower. So the bee is even tinier than that on the inside. I can't believe it. This is called a bee mimic beetle, and that is a type of milkweed. This is awesome. Wasp and bees getting along side by side. So the fraternal potter wasp, I learned, doesn't even sting you. Doesn't even have a stinger. It wants pollen. Wants to eat pollen and nectar. Common eastern bumblebee. The crane fly. This is also, believe it or not, can be a pollinator. Red banded leafhopper. Eastern tiger swallowtail. That's on the buttonbush. You don't get them in a grass yard. I just like the name grape leaf skeletonizer moth. The grape leaf skeletonizer moth. He sounds like a villain out of one of the comic books or one of the Marvel movies. He kind of looks like that. Never saw him before until I started planting native. Dun skipper, beautiful dun skipper here on a common milkweed. Spice bush swallowtail, also on a milkweed. Here's another wasp. This is a gold marked thread waisted wasp. I like that name because it totally makes sense. But guess what? It's tiny and doesn't sting. Red milkweed beetle, Mexican grass carrying wasp, another one, doesn't sting. These guys are really small, and it turns out they're just as important as pollinators as bees are. They go from flower to flower, and they just, the pollen that gets stuck to them ends up pollinating the next guy. Small milkweed bug, kind of cute. Now, this guy can't sting. The great black digger wasp. He's pretty big and can be a little striking. He didn't sting me, Oh, this was beautiful. The pure green sweat bee. I don't know if you can tell, but it's totally iridescent. Just pops right out at you. And it's a bee, and he's tiny and he's green, and you wouldn't even think of him as a bee. He almost looks kind of like an ant. This is a winter firefly. I don't know if you guys remember when we were younger, there were, or I should say, when I was younger, there were fireflies all over. Not fireflies anymore. Why? Because we had grass lawns. This guy came back. He wants to be here. Humpback bee wolf. Ah, so cool. Four-toothed mason wasp. Transverse banded flower fly. Ah, such a cool name and a really neat fly. Guess what? He's pretending to be a bee, and he's doing exactly what bees do. He's a fly, but he's going from flower to flower, bringing pollen with him. And this is one of my favorites. This is an elephant mosquito, and it doesn't drink blood. It doesn't bite people. It drinks nectar. And I mean, I didn't know what it was. When I found it, I didn't know what it was. I took the picture, and I could see it had like a 70s sort of roller skate, glitter thing going on. On the back, you can kind of see a little green, a little gold. And this guy is amazing. And he had these feather sort of things on these antennae. All of that is just so that he can drink the nectar out of flowers and sort of blend in and try to not get eaten by someone else. This guy will sting you. In fact, the dark paper wasp is usually the wasp that we think of when we get stung by a wasp. This guy, he will, but he's also he's part of the habitat for the yard. Monarch butterfly. When I created the pollinator garden, it was specifically because I was trying to help the monarch. I don't get them. I wouldn't get them because they wouldn't visit a grass yard. But once I planted these milkweeds, they came, and this is where they lay their eggs. They would prefer to lay their eggs on a milkweed because their young can eat the milkweed and turn into butterflies. Unfortunately, there is an invasive plant called black swallowtail that mimics being this milkweed. The monarch will go lay its eggs, and it's toxic, 100% toxic to the young. And so when the eggs hatch and they eat the black swallow tail or black swallowwort, pardon me, they die. There's 100% fatality rate. This is a big problem, and it's really difficult sometimes to get rid of. I found it here, I dug it up, and it hasn't come back. But if you don't do that, it might come back. Flat-tailed leafcutter bee. Look at the eye on this guy. Wow. And again, so small, won't sting you, and he's on top of just one of the little flowers on a milkweed. To show how tiny he is, there's even a tinier bug behind, underneath. I didn't even know it was there when I was taking the picture. And speaking of birds, and I know I'm going kind of quick here, but I want to make sure we get through. I'm going to zoom through here. This is an owl. It's an eastern screech owl. It's in my backyard. That's right. I have an eastern screech owl that lives in my backyard. But he lives there now because I put an owl box up, and he likes to just overlook the yard and make sure everything's okay. And I get all kinds of crazy birds. This is an American tree sparrow, dark-eyed junco, Baltimore oriole, chipping sparrow. This is the white-throated sparrow that I mentioned. Some of you might have heard, likes to sing old Sam Peabody, Peabody, Peabody. Another Baltimore oriole. This is a Cooper's hawk, and he is checking out the backyard buffet. That's a dick sissel. That's a bird that normally doesn't come to people's backyards, and he showed up in mine. American tree sparrow again, a bird that we don't normally see where I live, so it was kind of cool. And if you know anything about birds, the downy woodpecker can be really tricky to figure out sometimes. Here's a picture of the downy right next to the hairy, his cousin. The hairy is the larger one, and on the left is the downy. These are both adults, and they're both female, and you can tell the difference in the size, just the size of the bill alone, that they're different birds. And the turkeys. I love the turkeys. I think they're beautiful. I think up close, they're really beautiful. I think their feathers are striking, and I love that they've adapted to people to be able to live in an urban environment and survive. We need all of the birds to be able to do that. These guys have done a pretty good job of that. There's the owl again, checking out the sunset. He's getting ready to leave his roost. This is called a Canada warbler, and it's in my backyard. He wouldn't be there if I didn't plant those shrubs. These are the young poults from the turkeys having a drink. Fox sparrow. Fox sparrow is another one that's a little hard to find sometimes, hanging out in the backyard. This is an immature Cooper's hawk, striking with the eye. He missed. He was trying to get another bird and he didn't. And one day I look out and there's a couple of ducks and I thought, oh my gosh, what the heck? But it turns out mallards will nest up to 2 miles away from a water source. They want to nest where they can hide. They want to be able to stay hidden, and they'll look for something like a shrub to put their nest in and lay their eggs. There they are. This is a blue jay. This blue jay is what's called sunning. If you know birds at all, sometimes they will spread out their wings and kind of sun. He's spread out all his feathers, and he's trying to get sunshine on the glands. Supposedly, we believe that it activates the oil glands. There's a number of birds that do this in my yard. This is a mourning dove. She is on the ground sunning right now. This is a northern flicker doing the same thing, not dead, might be playing dead, but also sunning, just spread out to get the sun and try to activate those glands. This picture, these pictures I know aren't good photos, but sometimes when you take a picture of a warbler, I don't know if you know warblers, they don't like to sit still, and you don't have a lot of time to get it right. They also prefer to be hidden. What makes this special, this is called a Nashville warbler. But what makes this special is this was December. Now, if anybody knows birds, to get a warbler in December is pretty exciting, but to get this guy show up in your backyard in December is rare. And I'd like to think that what I've been doing back there is what's to plan, helping the wildlife. He showed up here because he was looking for something to eat, and he was looking for a place to hide. This is a pine warbler doing the same thing in the wintertime, and he's grabbing a bite to eat from a suet feeder. We get these in our backyard. Most people nowadays do. This is a red-bellied woodpecker. I just thought it was pretty cool being up close. Like I said, with the flowers and the bugs, I like to see some of the detail that I don't normally get to see with my eye. And this is a male turkey, and he is showing off for the ladies. And believe it or not, I was outside and I was near him, probably within 5 feet when I took the photograph. He was not aggressive to me. Sometimes turkeys get a bad rap. They can be aggressive, especially during mating season. But for whatever reason, these guys are kind of used to me and they don't really bother me. I'm not trying to pet them or anything or push them, but he lets me take his picture as he's showing off. And he really, to me, I think he was posing for the camera. Oh, this is a Wilson's warbler, another one, and it was in the backyard. And this is, I think, one of the high bush blueberry branches. This is a rose-breasted grosbeak, and this is a female, and she's checking me out as I'm taking her picture. And I just always find it funny when a bird looks right at me when I'm taking the picture, like they know that I'm there doing that. Red-winged blackbird in my backyard. This is a female Baltimore oriole feeding her young on my clothesline. A male grackle feeding his young. And what I find really funny about this is the child is standing in the bird feeder, surrounded by bird food. There's a mourning dove who's eating, and he still wants to be fed by the parent, which is kind of like our own kids, right? It's kind of funny. He insists that the dad has to feed him. And the dad looks really annoyed. Like, can't you just bend down and grab your own bite to eat? And here's the owl taking it all in. I don't know if it's a male or female. I can say that I've never seen any young yet. It's been 3 years, and the owl comes back every year. This is a red-tailed hawk in the yard, and he decided he wanted to see what was going on. And this, oh my gosh. So this is a merlin, which is a very small falcon. Falcons eat other birds mostly. And he's having a disagreement with a European starling. But the merlin, having it in your yard, this is wintertime, you can see the snow. I just happened to be working from home in the sunroom. I took the picture from inside the sunroom, out closed windows, and just got lucky, man. Right place, right time. But I want to say, I think there's more than luck here in that there's a reason why he came to the yard, and that's because I'm trying to make it more inviting. Now, I know it's late, so I'm going to just get through this and close it up. This is a picture of the recent, I think this was last summer. Again, you can see how things have started getting taller. This is the fence. I designed this fence myself. This is a natural cedar wood fence. It's 8 feet tall, and it's horizontal board. I wanted something that would fit in with what I was trying to do here, the vision. But more importantly, underneath, I left a gap, not just because I'm on this steep hill, but because I wanted to make it wildlife friendly. You know, I didn't want anything to be trapped in the yard. Believe it or not, the turkeys, they can walk underneath that, and they do. So when they come in, it's kind of funny to see them sort of walk through, and they just go right underneath the fence and right in. This is it from the outside at the top of the hill. You can see the gaps. And some of this gap fills in, you know, as vegetation stuff grows, but it's still space for the animals to move. And here it is at night. And did I mention I had a steep hill? Because that's it. And I'm telling you, it can be a little crazy when it comes to planting and being able to hold water, and yet it's working. Somehow it's working. Oh, last slide. Passed a very thorough fence inspection. So the females came, checked it out, and they give it a thumbs up. And that's it. I appreciate you taking your time to spend with me, and really thanks to the Waltham Land Trust. I really hope, you know, my point was to show that native plants in a very few short years completely changed what was happening in the backyard as far as wildlife is concerned. And when I say wildlife, I'm including the bugs. To have hummingbirds, to have a Canada warbler, to have a merlin, falcon, those things aren't common in an urban environment. And they must have seen it, you know, and thought, oh, that's a place I could go, much like they would go to the Ipswich River Wildlife Sanctuary or Plum Island. And that was the point. So I hope you consider doing something like that. Maybe not as crazy as I went all out, but add some local plants. And you know what? I'll even help you. So Diana or Sonia, if there's any questions, I can answer any questions.
There's a couple, and they're basically the same, but let me read you the first one because it's a little longer. It says, "Thank you for your presentation, Shilo. You've done a wonderful job with your yard and your passion is infectious. I would love to transform mine, but I'm not able-bodied and don't have your vision. Do you do this for hire? If so, would you share your contact information?" And the second one was, "Is Shilo available to help design a backyard for a fee?" So
Oh,
you've
that's
got
awesome.
another source of income if you're interested.
Well, I'm happy to help. I don't have a business officially, but clearly I care so much about this message and this idea. Look, you know, I was stricken by the loss of birds. That's how it started. I don't know if any of you realize, but since the 70s, we've lost about 3/4 of all birds on the planet have disappeared. You know, 70 to 75% of all the birds that lived in 1970 are now gone. And that, I don't know, that just doesn't, it's not just climate change, you know. And so I thought, well, what can I do to help, right? I came at it from the start as a birder. It took me a little while to get to the bugs, and that part wasn't right away. But I realized, well, the birds eat the bugs, right? And so, oh, I guess I got to put in plants. Oh, you know what? When I started the plan, I didn't have any flowers. I didn't care for flowers. I didn't want flowers. So I was like, I'm putting in shrubs and I'm putting in trees. I'm putting in real plants. And then someone said, well, what are you going to do for ground cover? What are you going to do for the pollinators? What are you going to do for flowers? And I thought, well, what are you talking about? I learned. And that's why I started planting all these others, and it worked. Basically, all the flowers you saw, I was putting in around those shrubs along that path, so that when you walk through the path, now you've got flowers. And I also set it up so that flowers show up at different times of the year. It's a little trickier to do it that way, but if you know the time that they're supposed to bloom, or you know when color is supposed to come, then you could time it right to say, I'd like to have color here, I'd like to have some color here, I'd like to have some color there. It's not easy. I said before, I made mistakes. I planted things that like wet soil with right next to things that like dry soil. Well, now I realize that maybe wasn't such a great idea. Not everything that I planted survived. Some of the things wanted acidic soil. Some of the things wanted basic soil. They wanted lime. Well, that was a big problem because you can't have blueberry bushes. They want acidic soil. And I got 19 of them. You can't have winterberry. They want acidic soil next to something that wants lime, like grass. And that was another problem. I had spent all these years putting lime and iron out for the grass to have nice, lush green grass. Well, that's not what most of the things I planted want. So I had to start making adjustments, like bringing in compost and soil, and buying it by cubic yards and not just in bags.
Okay. We've got one more that came in. How do you keep rabbits and other critters from eating your plants? I think I asked you that question earlier today. So
Everybody wants it. So I'm going to tell you a real funny story. I went to Native Plant Trust, and I walked up to a woman there who was tending to some of the plants. And I said, hey, you know, what can I buy for rabbits? And she said, oh, you mean like, you know, to get rid of rabbits or to stop rabbits? I said, no, to feed rabbits. And then she kind of huffed and walked away. She didn't want to talk to me. She thought I was like the enemy or something. And I meant it for real, because I thought, hey, they're part of the ecosystem also. And it'd be nice to have something that could take, you know, maybe feed them. I don't have the same problem as some people do with rabbits. I have a couple who show up every year, and I don't know if it's the same couple, but they don't eat everything. I want to say, I don't know if I'm lucky or if somebody else's yard around my house is more attractive. I planted a lot of strawberries thinking they were going to eat the strawberries. I've got about 60 strawberries out there as ground cover, and they're not eating them. I don't know why. So I can't really say what to get around. I can tell you that the sheep laurel that I showed you with the little pink flowers, that's mammals don't like it. They won't eat it. It's poisonous to them. They know that, so they're not going to do it. If they did nibble on it, they might get a tummy ache. They're not going to die. I have a groundhog. I have a groundhog every year, sometimes more than one. And he doesn't really seem to cause a lot of damage here either. I don't know, again, if I'm lucky or if they just have plenty to eat. It could be I have so much to choose from that I don't even notice it when they eat something. Maybe.
if you want plants that bunnies will eat, I can give you a list.
Yeah. Like I said, she wouldn't answer me. So she was like angry or irritated that I was asking for the opposite. And I was serious at the time. I was like, you know, because I thought, if I gave the bunny something to eat, then maybe it would leave the other plants alone. I
Okay.
don't know. It was an idea. A lot of this stuff was just an idea and then it's kind of a test. A lot of the backyard was an experiment, and even the front yard. But it worked out in the end.
Okay.
It worked
Let's
out. I
see.
mean,
I've got two more. Well, let me go to the simple one. It says, do you have deer or no deer snacking on your plants?
I don't anymore. We've had deer before, and that was maybe 15 years ago. And there was man, I wish I knew the land trust back then, because there was a plot of land that went up for sale, and a developer bought it and just clear cut and turned it into a cul-de-sac with 4 huge houses. Before that, deer, I think, would hang out there, and every now and again I would see them in my yard.
Mhm.
I haven't seen deer since that happened. So
Oh, okay. And let me get to the other one was a great presentation. Thank you. This is from Susan. Gardens by Dementra uses native, and Walter Kittredge of Oak Haven Sanctuary in North Reading grows true natives and will help you design native gardens. So that's a good answer for some of the people who are looking for some help. I'm doing this in Reading and I'm having the same successes. So
nice.
Susan Bowe, I think her name is. And let's see if there's any more. You see any more, Sonia?
Yep, Kathy asks if you have jumping worms. And then,
No.
yeah, do you have jumping worms?
No, not yet. So if, for those who don't know, jumping worms are an invasive worm that's been working its way up the coast. What we're hoping is that our cold winters might keep it a little bit at bay, but we don't know. It's an invasive, and it overtakes the local population of earthworms. To date, I've never found one. There are ways to identify them visually, but one way is that they're more active. If you touch them, they'll move or jump very quickly. They start fidgeting, and our normal earthworms maybe not so much. So they're bad news, though, and I'm not sure there's any real way to permanently remove them once they take hold.
Somebody also, Victoria Huber, mentions that also Echo Designs does gardens. And the last one I have at the moment anyway is from Donna. Fabulous webinar, love your passion. I am doing the same in Melrose. It is definitely a learning journey of love. So from Donna Marie.
Also,
cool.
I see that Scott has his hand raised.
Oh, is
I-
Scott put something in the Q&A if you can? It's like, I don't know how
I can allow him to talk. Scott, you ready to talk? Oh, I think you just put your hand, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Go, Scott. Scott.
That was accidental.
Okay.
I don't actually have a question, but it was a terrific presentation though. So thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Is that everything?
I believe it, oh wait, no, I think we might have Susan would like to add my address to the groups who do the mosquito spraying each year so the chemicals don't absorb into my native plant leaves.
Yeah, so you know, I try to stay away from things that might be controversial. You know, spraying for bugs, it kills bugs. I mean, it kills bugs. They're going to claim that it only kills, you know, the mosquito that we don't like. But you just saw in my presentation, there's the elephant mosquito. How can they determine that it's only going to affect just the mosquito that bites people and not the elephant mosquito, which doesn't bite anybody and just sits there looking beautiful and wants to pollinate flowers? So I don't like the idea of spraying. We from a birding perspective, we were looking at chickadees, our state bird, and noticing that in areas where there's spraying, there is also less chickadees. Well, chickadees eat mosquitoes, so that's their food. And you go and you kill the food source, you are, without directly killing the bird, you're killing the bird because you're taking away what it eats. I recognize that we have to be careful, but I believe in personal protection. So I bird, I hike, I'm outside all the time, I'm gardening, and I'll have on bug spray, or I'll have on clothes that have permethrin, stuff for me, which isn't going to affect the environment around me. I don't even spray for bugs in the yard. You can see all those bugs. I don't want to hurt them. I do believe in protecting the plants and the mess if you had an infestation or something that was out of control. But the truth is, most of the times when that stuff happens, it's because the balance, everything's out of whack. It's because now an invasive bug comes in and takes over, and now everything's out of whack. It's not because it would have been that way naturally. We wouldn't. The ecosystem wouldn't have been able to survive if it was like that to begin with.
Okay, well, there's one last one from Michael. It says, thanks, Shilo. We did the same thing in West Roxbury. Daphne at, and he gives a website, www.garden-habitats.org is another resource.
Very cool. I want to also say about the bugs in the same fashion. Rodenticide is a hot topic lately, and I feel terrible about my owl with the thought that somebody could accidentally kill it. So if you put out a bait box that these places are selling, and it has rat poison in it, and then that owl eats that rat, the owl dies too. And that, I don't think people realize the poison doesn't kill the rat right away. In fact, the owl probably wouldn't even eat the rat if it was already dead. That poison could take up to 3 days. And so the predator, be it a hawk or a fox, sees this rat wobbling or acting a little funky, and he goes, oh, that's a guy, I can get him. And he goes and gets his next meal, but now he's poisoned too. And so this happened, was it Arlington? Arlington banned them.
We've done presentations. We've had people come in, and we're working for that too. So we're trying to teach people, but you can't.
I love that owl. I love it. I don't want anything bad to happen to it.
We're with you.
Okay.
Yeah, Save Waltham Wildlife is the name of the initiative that the Waltham Land Trust has, and you can find out about Save Waltham Wildlife on our website, walthamlandtrust.org. If you go under the projects tab, there's on the drop down menu, Save Waltham Wildlife is where you can find out about that. And we're looking for more people to be involved with our efforts, our advocacy efforts, and we're also going to be doing a bait box survey. We'll be going around the city, specifically around the city properties, and recording what is being used in that bait box by looking at the label and seeing what's been checked off. So lots of good things are on our website, including the recording. Jenny asks, how do I view the recording? So give us a little bit of time. I think next week we will have it on our website on the YouTube, on our YouTube. So if you go to walthamlandtrust.org, down at the bottom, it has the different icons for our different social media things. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have a Flickr page where we have all of our pictures of our cleanups and all of our activities. And then if you click on the YouTube icon, that'll take you to our videos. It would be under videos. So you just gotta kind of click along and pick on the tab. So that should be there next week. And yes, people appreciate you, Shilo, and I appreciate you. Diana appreciates you. Thank you so much for giving us this great presentation. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I really appreciate you guys taking some time to learn about native plants and creating pollinator paradises. And I think with that, I'll just have this quick last, lots of people saying, great presentation. Lots of accolades to you.
Thanks everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everybody.
so much. Thanks for coming, people. All
Have a
righty.
nice night.
Night.